And in this window you can give a name. Let's say I want to give Expo Hub. You can give any title you want, and then this is stored inside this location, and you can give a description in case you need for what this project is for. This is for a tutorial purpose, right? So whatever your purpose is, you can mention that. Okay, so this is done. Now click on create. So this is the RE framework template, guys. You can see it, right? This is quite simple. First is, there are 4 different states. One is your init state, get transaction data, process transaction, and your final state or end process state. Okay, so in interview they might ask you in RE framework how many states and how many transitions are there. So you would say there are 4 states. Okay, so first is init state, get transaction data state, process transaction data, and end process. And this are called the transitions. Okay, so what is initial state is something where it gets some data from a configuration file. So I'm going to show you in detail, but it initializes your project. Okay, it collects certain uh, basic data from a config file, and then it initializes your applications to see if the applications are there or not. So all the checks happen here. So it is initialized, and once it is initialized, then there are 2 things can happen. There could be a system error, there could be a success, there is no error, right? So if there is a system error, it's going to end the process. Let's say it's not able to start the application, or let's say your config data is there in Excel and Excel did not open, right? So there is a system error. So that is where it is going to, we can ensure how to tackle that here, and is going to get into the end state. Okay, and then you have something called get transition data, where you are, whatever data you are when initialized from that file is going to read the data generally from a queue, orchestrator queue. Don't worry about all these words, but I'm going to explain in so nicely and in detail that once you listen to this entire tutorial, you will never forget. Okay, so for the moment, let's understand the architecture. So this is the RE framework architecture. Initial state we understood, and there are 2 transitions. Once it gets the data, you know this is where it happens, get transaction data, where it get all the transaction items. So each data, let's say the data is there in Excel, and you have each row, right? Name, employee email address, and details like that, and you want to process each of this data. So these are called transaction item. Okay, so get transaction data does that, and then you get into a 2 different state called, if there is no data, then it will go to end process. If there is new transaction, then it is going to process the data, and this is the third stage or state. Once it processes the data, this has got 3 different transitions. One is the data is processed successfully, or there is a business rule exception. Means, let's say employee whose tenurity in the company is less than 3 years do not fall under this rule. I mean, let's say there's a bonus has to be distributed or anything, something like that. So that is a business rule exception, where anyone who is less than 3 years of experience in the same company would not fall into that. So that it will just remove, it is an exception, so it will go for the next data. Okay, that is called business rule exception. Error, while processing the data, if there is some kind of an error, then it will again try to go to init state and get the data once again. Okay, so this is what the entire process. So in interview they will ask you question, what is the RE framework architecture, or what are the different states, or how many transitions are there. So your answer is there are 4 states and 7 transitions. Okay, what are the 7 transitions? In the init it has got 2 transitions, in the get transaction it has got another 2, so 4, and in the process it has got 3, success, rule exception, and error. Okay, so put together there are total of 7 transitions that would happen, where it will move from one state to another state. Okay, so as of now the framework architecture is clear. Okay, now the next thing that we need to learn, so this is robotic or RE framework architecture. Okay, so this we have understood. Now the next thing we have to in detail understand each stage, because I'll tell you, until now people are fine. So once they open this and when they see so many things, there are so many things, oh my god, what is this? So that is where the main fail point would be. People get confused, but I will make it very easy. So let's get started. So what happens when there are 4 states? So let's explore each state one by one. So now we will start with init state. So we will explore the init state now. So what you do, so I am expecting that you have opened UiPath framework and then you are in the same page. So click on this init. Okay, now your entire init block is kept inside a try catch. Okay, so this is basically, it reads the configuration file and initialize your applications. So what is this entire workflow? Let's see it. Now first thing you should do, go to your UiPath folder. Okay, generally it will be in documents and then UiPath. Here you can see the Robotic Enterprise Framework Expo Hub demo has been created. Just click on this. Okay, so once you click on this, you will find there are so many default folders got created. Okay, and each of this folder is required for the project to run. So now let's say settings folder. Okay, these are a couple of debug and release notes and the local. I'll tell you which are the critical ones and what is inside it. Okay, so this is the .local. So this one data is something we'll be using. This two will not be using. This is internal for the project, but data is something, is the folder that we will be using. So if you go to data, there is a file called config. Just open this file just to see what is there inside this configuration file, and this is the file we'll be using in the init state. So you can see this file has got there are 3 different sheets: settings, constants and assets. Okay, so settings has got the orchestrator queue name. So this is the default thing. Okay, this is just a template and we can change it as we need. So just understand, now you take it very simple. There's an Excel file which has got 3 sheets. The first sheet name is settings, second is constants, and the third one is assets. So in the settings, it has got some data. It has got 3 columns: name, value and description. And in the constants, it has got again name, value and description. And here you have got max retry number, delay short, all of this. So you want to give some delay in the project. So you have seen in many of my tutorial where I'm using Excel file and picking some data and utilizing, right? So it is the same thing that I'm doing here with this template. So there's a pre-made template and pre-made variables and details are created where I'll be using one of them and get some value of it and utilize in my project. So for as of now, you understand this is just a Excel file which has got some data. We have to pick this data and utilize in our workflow. Okay, that should be our understanding at this moment. Okay, let's get back. So now in the init state, if you see, the very first thing they have written is initialize system error. So while if there is kind of any, while running the robot, if there is some kind of a system error which is coming, then it will fail. It will go to end state. I said you, right? In the main, if there is a system error, it should go to, in case of system error, it will automatically go to end process. Now if so, what they have written, initialize system error is equal to nothing. So if it is nothing, if there is, of course there will be no error at the beginning. So if there is no error, then it will move on to the second one. So this one, so we will have little patience because we have to explore each of this item slowly, one by one. So once we have an understanding, then it will be quite easy to understand all of it. I'm telling you guys. So this chapter is very critical. You have to have patience, and one by one you have to do it. So now the second step in the workflow is if. They have used a if condition, and they are saying config is nothing. So what is this config is nothing means? You go to variables, you see there are so many. By default this template has got multiple variables. Okay, by default within the template they have created everything for you. You just have to know what they are and you have to utilize it. If you go to arguments, same way they have created, you know, argument for this also. Now the config is not, you know, there is something called config. So where this config is coming from, let's see that. So you see there is a variable they have created called config, and this is a dictionary type, and there is default value is nothing. So config is a, so we need to remember one by one. Okay, so what we are learning, config variable, which is a dictionary type. Okay, and there is no default value. So they are using this config value here in the if statement and saying config is nothing. Okay, if there is no config file, then because initially there is no value, right? So it is of course nothing. Then you, so config, if you see in the variable there is no default value given, so of course the config file is nothing, there is nothing is there. So for the first time when it runs, the config file is nothing, then it should do this. Okay, invoke the init all settings workflow. So this workflow will be started. So to understand this workflow, let's get into that. Click on open workflow. So this much you understood, right? So two parts are very simple. First is system error is equal to nothing. Of course in the starting there will be no system error, so it will go into the next one. Here they are saying config is the dictionary variable is nothing. Of course it is nothing at the beginning because there is no default value. So it will get into then section and it is going to invoke this workflow. So now what is this workflow, we need to understand. So for this, all you have to do, click on open workflow. So where this workflow is coming, guys, there has to be somewhere this workflow is already stored. So to see that, go to your folder. Okay, so there is something called framework. If you go to framework, so these are the activities which they have created already. You just have to invoke and use it. Okay, so kill process is the entire workflow, take a screenshot is the entire workflow. So similarly for all of this they have created all different close all applications. You can just use this. Okay, so it is quite easy. So you don't design from the beginning, you can just use these templates and start, you know, working, because most of our workflow will have, you know, utilize, these are very common things. So they have already built it for you and you have to just utilize it. That's simple. Okay, so for the timing, if you see what they are utilizing, in the if section, right, we were here. So in the if section they are utilizing init all settings workflow. Okay, you can say init all settings workflow. So here if you go init all settings, so this is the workflow they are trying to utilize. So let's see what is there inside the workflow just by clicking on it. Okay, so we have opened init all settings. So till now it is clear. So right now we have come to the first workflow, init all settings, and what is inside we are going to learn. Okay, so the very first thing they are doing in this one is they have created a assign. They have taken a, this is an assign activity, and in the assign activity they have used a variable and they are declaring something. So let's see. So here, so out config is the argument, and here they have written new dictionary of string object. So they are actually creating a new dictionary with no values. So they are just initializing the dictionary. So if you see, if you go to your arguments, out config is a out. That means what is the meaning of out? So whatever value finally this will have, this is going to give the value outside of this workflow. Okay, so I can utilize anywhere in my project. So this out indicates the value, whatever value that is going to contain, that is going to be utilized at the outside of this workflow. Okay, that is why it is out. Okay, so now you have understood. First thing, they have created a variable. It's a dictionary variable. So there is a variable called config variable in the main workflow, and it is a dictionary type. And when we get into the init all settings, so we are inside init all settings invoked workflow, right? Init all settings invoked workflow. Inside this, the first variable which they have created is out underscore config. Okay, so this is again a dictionary type. Okay, currently it has got no value at the moment. Okay, there's no value. Simply as you create a variable, right, you declare a dictionary variable. Simple to declare that. This is the, you can try that out. New dictionary of string comma object. So the first value, the key will be of string and the value is of a object type. Okay, that is the meaning of this one. Okay, new dictionary of string is the first value is called of string type, and the second, this is the key, and this is the value which is object type. So we'll understand what is a key, what is a value, why dictionary, all of this we will understand. Just continue. Okay, so first, right now, the step number one they have done is they have created a variable. Wonderful. Now they have used a for each loop. Inside the for each loop, they are using another variable called in config sheets. So what is in config sheets? If you go here, the variable is created in config sheets, and here it is a string array. Okay, it's an array type, and here they have given two values. They have simply given, simply if I tell you create a string array and give Rakesh, Ramesh two different names, so you will just simply create a variable here, right? And then you give a value. So this is an argument, which is in, that means you are giving value into this variable. So you are giving settings and constant. These are the two different values to this variable. Okay, simply if I ask you to give in config sheets Rakesh and Ramesh, you just write these two names and the value will come. Okay, now let's see when the for each loop is running, what are the values coming. So to do that, all you do, you disable all the activities, guys. So first thing you do is disable all the other activities, and we will learn one by one. Okay, control plus D, or else you can just right click and do disable activity. So I've disabled all the activities now. Okay, you can see all of this has been disabled, so nothing will run. So what I want to do, when they are saying in config sheets, and if I use a message box, okay, and here I want to see what is the value this sheet contains. So I'll simply say sheet. Okay, now if I run this, so you can see that the in underscore config sheets, it is a string variable which contains two data. One is settings. If I click OK, then again the for each loop is running. Then the next value which is derived is constants. Okay, so this you have understood. So this is nothing, very simple. This is a string array. Okay, argument which has got two default values, settings and constants. So why they have given settings and constant? Reason being, they wanted to access this config file, and this config file has got two different names, settings, constants, and there's asset. Okay, asset is something we will not utilize. Generally we will not utilize this, so they are not utilizing it over here, this particular sheet, but anybody who requires it, they can use this. So you can give sheet, constant and asset. You can, in the dictionary, you can declare three values. Okay, here they have declared two values, you can declare three values. So that is not a matter. So you understood why they have given names. Okay, now if you go back here, the next thing that they have done, they are using a read range. Now in the read range, the sheet, when it is running for the first time, the first value is settings, the second value is constant. So the first value comes here, settings. So it is reading, generally you write right in read range, sheet 1, sheet 2, whatever your name of the sheet. So instead of doing that, they have done it in a different way. They have used a for each loop. They have already given a value, and the value will, it's a variable in the for each, which will have the value called settings for the first time, and it will read the entire file. So what it will do, we are just simply reading the entire data in the sheet. So whatever the data is there, it should just read it. That's all. Okay, I think this is clear. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to remove this, Control E. Okay, so and I'm going to delete this. So we understood this one. Okay, now in the read range settings, in config file is your, what is in config file, guys? In config file, if you go to arguments, in config file stores the path of this Excel file, data config. So this is why you might get confused. Instead of directly saying they have used a variable and the variable has got some value, and you might just confuse what, and looking at the underscore, that makes much more technical, right? Okay, so this is complex. No, this is not complex. See, this is a variable and there's a default data. Instead of writing data slash config, they have written the variable. That's all. Okay, so that the variable can be utilized at multiple places. So you don't write the same thing repeated times, right? That is the use of the variable. So there is using the variable. So it is understood. So it is going to that folder, open that file, and that in that you should read the sheet. So the sheet will have the first value is settings. So the first data will be read. So once it is read, the data getting stored in the data table, and the data table name is config table. Okay, the data table name is config table. If you go to variables, so this is what you have to do. Config table is the data table. Okay, so you understood how the data is being fetched from the sheet. So till now what we are doing, simply we are we are going to that Excel file and fetching the data from each of the sheet. So we will fetch the data from settings, we'll fetch the data from constants. Whatever data is there, it will just fetch using a data table. So this much is very much clear to all of you. Okay, now let me go to the next step, which is this one. So let me remove this command out, Control E. So let me activate this. Okay, so you understood the data table has come. Now you want to see the data table, right? What is there in the data table? Once again, let me do Control E, Control D. Let me disable that. Let me show you something. Let's say what is there inside the data table, I want to know. For that, what you'll be using, use a output data table, and here in the output data table, what is the data table they have declared? It's called config table, right? So I'll use the same data output data table. Here you can say config table. So config table is your data table coming from the read range. Okay, and the text output, let's say Control K, let's say MSG is my variable where the data will be stored, and let me use the message box. Okay, and here let me say MSG. So let's see what are the data it's fetching. Okay, so before you do that, what I will do, I'll create another copy of this, because I cannot keep this file open because they are not using Excel application scope, right? So it will throw me an error if the file is open. So let me make a copy so I can compare you what data it's pulling. Okay, this is the copy I'm creating. Alright, so the copy is ready. So let me run it now and see what data we are getting in the message box. So I am dissecting all of this and showing you one by one. Okay, what is the data we are getting. So once we have an understanding of this, we'll understand the entire workflow, and for the entire future we'll be able to use it without any doubt. So let me run it. Okay, so in the message box, the data that has come is, if you see, first is it has the sheet, it is reading the sheet 1, right, which is settings. So when it goes to settings, you can see it is reading name, value, description, then orchestrator. So it is reading row by row, orchestrator queue name, Kibana demo queue, orchestrator queue name. Okay, then there is a blank space, then log of business process name, framework. So it is reading row by row. Okay, if I click on OK, now it will go to the second sheet, which is constants, and is going to read all of the data, name, value, row by row, description, max retry number 0, okay, and then must 0, whatever it is, then time outshot, there is a space. So it is, you can see log message application exception, log message application exception, and is reading all the data of the sheet, okay, row by row. Is that clear? And then system exception. So you also try that, you will find the data table is just reading both the data. Okay, it is not reading the third sheet, it's just reading settings and constant, because this is what we have declared in the argument. In config sheet should say settings and constants, and settings and constants are fed into the for each loop, right? Settings, and this is a simple string array, and it is just giving the value. So you can directly write, right, read range settings, read the sheet name is settings, and then you can use one more activity, read range, again you can say constant. So that is one way, this is a different way. Okay, you understood? So this is quite, because of all of this variables, the basic problem is people might get confused, but actually it is easy when you try to dissect and see what data it is getting. Okay, so this we have understood. Let me delete both of this. Okay, now let me remove the comment. So now we are inside the for each row. Now in the for each row, we are using the config table, which is your data table, which is coming from your read range activity. This is a data table called config table, and config table has got data from sheet 1 and sheet 2, which is settings and constant, the name of the sheets. Okay, now row by row it's going to read. Now they have put a condition. So what we will do, it is going to read the row data. We saw that in the message box. So first row, it is showing all of this data, right? And then it's showing this data. Then, so this is the header, ignore the header, but from here the data will be accessed. So these are the data. So it's showing all of this data in the row and all of this data in this one. Now if I have to access this data, so the row which has got orchestrator queue name, the row which has got log of business process name. So how to do that? In the for each loop, config table is your data table which got all the data. Okay, now what I will do, I will just comment it out and show you a couple of things which is critical. Okay, now we are just inside the for each loop and nothing else is working. So what I will do, I'll use a message box. Here in the message box, what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you how to. So if I say row, so row is your for each row. Okay, so from there, this row has got the data table values. Row, here I am going to say in the bracket, let's say I want to pull the name. This name is what? The first column, right? Name. And if I say dot to string, so if I do this and run this, okay, so you can see if I go to the Excel file, it is pulling row name in the bracket dot to string. If I do orchestrator queue name is the first thing, then log of business process, then there is a blank space, right? So blank is coming. Then the third one is log of business process name, so that is coming. So I am simply till now what I am doing, I am just trying to read an Excel file, that's all. Okay, very simple. Then it is going to the second sheet called constant, because it is inside the for each loop, and the second sheet it has got it is in the data table which has got both the values, right? Settings and constant, and then there is a blank, then let me go to constant. So first one is blank, then max retry number, then there is a blank, then timeout short, then timeout medium, then timeout long. So all of this will come one by one. Okay, delay short, delay long, accuracy low. So all of this is getting pulled. So you understood how to pull each of these values from the data table using a message box. So that is for to understand. Okay, so you understood this. Now if you see below, they have written something called if not string is null empty and a lot of things. So many people may get confused here, so let me explain you this. So you understood row name dot toString, so it is just showing you the value. If you write a dot trim, what it will do, sometimes in your Excel file it may happen you might give an extra space, right? You can give a space here. So if you have got a space, you do not want the space to be captured, so you use a dot trim. That's the function. If there is no space, it will just ignore it. That is the meaning of dot trim. Okay, and then what I will do at the beginning of this, I am just going to write a method called string dot is. Okay, if you write string dot is null or empty, if it is empty, so if you saw in the Excel file the couple of areas which is empty, right? This is empty, this is empty, this is empty. So if it is empty, it should show a boolean value. Okay, so what I'm writing instead of, so until row name to string dot trim, you understood, all I'm adding is string is null or empty, and here after this I'm putting a bracket. Okay, now if I put a bracket, let's see what value it is coming. Okay, let me run it. Okay, so is null. So our query is string is null or empty. Is it null? The first one, no, right? So it is false. Second one is null, so it is saying true. Third one is available, so it is saying false. It's not empty. Okay, then similar way it is going to the next one. The first one is empty, right? So it is true. This is not empty, so false. This is empty, so it's true. So like that it will go through all of this. Okay. Okay, so this you have understood. Okay, it is going through all of this. So if I say not, if I write at the beginning say not, it will just show me the opposite value. Okay, in capital NOT. Okay, now if I write not, it will just show me the opposite value. So where it is null, it was showing, if there is empty, it was showing true, right? Now it will show false. If it is not empty, if the data is already there, okay, so it will say true. So let me run this. This is to show the opposite value of it. So first the data is there, right? Not empty. So not empty, right? This is not empty. So data is there. So that's what the meaning is, true. So it is empty, false. It is not empty, true. So like that it is showing the data. Okay, so with this experiment you understood what is the meaning of that, and we are going to utilize that in the next workflow. See, then there is something called if. So I will delete this. So you understood the meaning of it. Very good. Now let's enable it by Ctrl+E. In this, they are using the config data table in the for each row, and they have put a condition if not string is not empty. That means if there is a value, then you do this. So they are using a add key value pair. So this is an assign activity. Okay, don't worry, get worried about this, but this is an assign activity where they are utilizing a dictionary and they are assigning the value. So what is this? Again, very simple. So wherever there is a value, so first one, let's say this is the key. So the column A is the key and column B is called the value. So when I say dictionary orchestrator queue name, what is the value? Kibana demo queue. If I say dictionary in bracket log of business process name, what is the value? The value is framework. So this is what they wanted to achieve in this workflow. Okay, so for that they have used the assign activity, and inside the assign activity, they are using this is out underscore config. So if you go to arguments, out underscore config, right? So this is nothing but a dictionary which will, whatever value it's going to get, that we can utilize outside this workflow I have explained you in the beginning. So this is a dictionary, simple dictionary variable. It's a variable, dictionary variable, which will have some value and that can be utilized outside of this workflow. Okay, so now what we are doing here, we are writing simply out config row name dot toString. dot trim means this will have the first value orchestrator name. So instead of writing out config in a bracket, I can simply say that particular variable, right? So this is the way to write it. Out underscore config row date norm string to string dot trim. This will have the value called row value. So what is row underscore value? So row underscore value is this. Okay, so let me show you. Okay, so this is a dictionary. If you know dictionary quite well, so understanding this is just matter of seconds. But again, let me explain you. So now to understand what this out config row has got the value, what we will do, you will use a message box inside the for each loop. Let me check if I am inside the for each loop, for each row. Okay, yeah. So here what I will do, I am simply going to utilize this value here. Okay, and see what is that output coming. So if I run it in the Excel file, if you see the first value is orchestrator name, right? So orchestrator name, which value is Kibana demo queue. So I should get Kibana, and for this one it will throw an error because this is blank, so it will not run, it will throw an error, but this is fine. We'll just understand how it works. So let me run it. Okay, you can see for the first one orchestrator queue name, right? Kibana demo queue. After this there will be error because this is blank, but we understood using the dictionary we are pairing it. So if I say name, it should show me the value as Kibana. If I say log of business process name, then it should give me the value called frame1. So till now we have understood we are using a dictionary variable, we are using a key and a assigned value. We saw the example, okay, using a message box. Okay, this part we have understood. So till now what we are doing, till now we are simply reading the config file, and storing the values, the keys and the values inside a dictionary variable. That's all we are doing, guys. Okay, so no confusion till now. We are just reading the Excel file and using the dictionary variable to store the values of key and value. When I say key, this is the key and this is the value. Okay, we call this as a key. So when I take the key name, the value will be whatever the associated value will be shown to you. Okay, this is what we are doing till now. After that we will move on to the next stage. Okay, so here what they are doing, let me remove this out, Control E, and here the first thing is it is saying loading assets. So loading asset is something we are not concerned because your asset sheet is completely blank, there is no data into it and we will not be using in most of our projects, so ignore this for the moment. Try loading asset is something we don't have to worry about, and there is an exception here. Okay, in the catch section, no assets defined for the process. So there is, anyways, we are not utilizing that. Okay, so till now what we have done in this entire workflow, we have where there is Excel file. Again, let me summarize. There is Excel file which has got data, settings and constants, and using a dictionary variable we are trying to pull all of these values. Okay, name and value, this is the key, this is the value. Okay, that is all we have done, and all of this data, if you see right now, out underscore config is the variable which has the data. Okay, so this is the data, this is the output of this entire workflow, out.config. So this will have the data output. Okay, so this is our variable that we'll be using. So what we will do, we'll just move a step back. So we'll go this, no, I don't want to store anything. So now we have understood in this, in the main section, right, we are in the init. So if I go to init, we have understood first step, second step, if config is nothing, then we have in detail we have understood what is the use of invoke init all settings workflow. Okay, so here if you go to import arguments, so there are three different arguments. One is in config file which had this Excel path, in config sheets which has got two, it's a string variable, simple string variable, it has got two values, and below that out config is the output variable, dictionary variable, which so the value, whatever the value is there, it is going to travel from here till this. So there's a new variable that they have declared called config, which is again a dictionary variable. So whatever the value is coming, all the values will get stored here in the config. Okay, so this is the new variable that we are going to use. So if you see your config, which was declared as a variable in the variable panel as a dictionary variable, so this has got no value. Now it will have value. Okay, config was nothing, now config has something, because in the import argument, the invoke workflow, whatever data has been picked, all the data will be stored in the config variable. So this is understood, right? So right now, as an output of all of this, what we are getting? We are getting a config dictionary variable which has all the Excel data, all the config Excel file data. Okay, so till now this is what we are doing. So let me remove all of this. So config, so at the end what we are getting a config dictionary variable which has all the configuration Excel file data inside it. So that is the output. Okay, so now we'll be utilizing this config variable. So below this you have something called save job arguments. Okay, just open this up. So here what I am doing in the save job argument config, if you go here, they are using a variable called orchestrator queue name. If you go to variable, go to arguments, orchestrator queue name is here, and by default this will come from the orchestrator, which I'm going to cover in the next chapter. Okay, how to create an orchestrator queue, how to give a name. So once you give the name, the same name, let's say I have created a queue, the queue name you have to give here. Let's say I have created a queue that I'm going to show in very detail in the orchestrator. Okay, how to create a queue, how to utilize. So understand what is a queue. Queue is nothing but which has got all the data one by one in the line. Okay, like you go in a bank queue, right? You are in line, and one by one the data will be processed. Similarly, the items, the transaction items or the data will be kept in the queue, and one data will be picked. So that is called the orchestrator queue name. So here I have not created the the queue name, so I'll simply write something. Let's say expo hub demo queue. Okay, so I've written this. So this is where whatever queue is there in the orchestrator, you have to simply declare that value over here. Okay, so once you declare, so it'll say if there is a value, not dot string is not empty. That means if it is not empty, then so that means there is a value. So I've given a value. So then you run this add orchestrator queue name. So what it's doing, it is using assign activity, and in the assign activity, config is your variable, right? And orchestrator queue name. So what is this orchestrator queue name? If you go here, this is the orchestrator queue name. Okay, so by default the value is what? Kibana demo queue, right? So instead of Kibana demo queue, you want to replace the value. So how to do that? Simply config orchestrator queue name. Okay, and here they are giving the new variable orchestrator queue name. So this is the new variable, right? In the argument orchestrator queue name, the same value they have given. So this whatever the value you have given, expo hub demo queue will come here. So let's see that. What I will do, let me put a message box before assignment. I am going to access the value of the queue name. So that would show Kibana demo queue, right? So this is the key. I'll go to UiPath, and here what I'm going to write, config is my output variable, right? Which has got all the data of the Excel file, which I said. So use this, and here what I'm going to do, I'm going to use that key. So there is a space. Okay, remove that space. Okay, the same thing what they have written here in the assign activity. Okay, now if I run this, and the same thing if I run after the assignment, somewhere here, okay, now you will see two different values. The first one will show Kibana, the second one will show, let me run this, and before you run, ensure all other activities are disabled. So let me disable all other activities. Control D, Control D, Control D. Okay, so all of this activities has been disabled. So let me run it. So you can see the first message box which has come as Kibana demo queue. Okay, that is coming from this Excel file, Kibana demo queue. And after I replace, so what we are doing, we are replacing with the new variable. So the next data will come expo demo queue. You understood this? So all they are doing is they are assigning the queue from the orchestrator. Okay, so let me stop this, because get transaction data we need to cover it in the upcoming chapter, in the next chapter. So this we have understood till now. We are simply assigning this. Okay, so understanding each of this workflow, each of these activities is very much required. So till now what we have done, till now we have got the all the data into a config dictionary variable, and the next thing that we have done is assigned the orchestrator queue name. Okay, so these are the two things that we have done. Now let's get into the next one. So let me activate it, Control E to activate. Now here invoke kill process workflow. Again, this is a kill. If you open workflow, there will be nothing. So you can define. So this is just logging activity called killing process. So in the log, in the output variable, it will log killing process. That's all. But you can add activities. You want to close an application, right? You want to kill a process, whatever you want to do, depending on your project, you can add all of this activity, drag and drop all of the activity over here. Okay, so this block will work. Understood? At the moment, this is a template, so it just is logging the value, killing, and then below that you have something called add log field. This is to add log. Let me show you. Let me enable this. Okay, and below that you have something called init all application settings. Now right now we do not have any application settings, but again, if you have any kind of application setting, you have to add this is just a template. You can drag and drop. For example, open browser, you want to open a certain PDF file and get some data. You want to open let's say particular site, a portal that you want to open, right? So all of these activities you can mention in the initialization sequence. So you keep the application open before the processing or the data processing gets starts. So you initialize all this application at the beginning in the background, right? That is the meaning of initialize sequence. So we understood all of this, right? Okay, so now we will just focus just above this. There is something called add log field kill process. So in this activity, if you saw what they are doing, they are simply, if you open the workflow, killing process, they're adding a message box. So how to do that? What you do inside your UiPath, just hit on Control L. Okay, this will open the log. Or else what you can do, go to C drive and then users, and inside the user you have another user, and then click on app data, click on local, and here you should find something called UiPath. Okay, and here you have something called logs, so it will go to the same option. So you can do Control L. Okay, better. So right now the time right now is 2:22. So if you see it here, 2:18. So this time I have run it. So this has the, click on this execution log. Okay, now if you open the execution log, you will see at the bottom it will have the date and time. So what I will do, let me delete all of this, okay, and save it, because there's so much of logs. Let me save it. Now let me run the workflow and I will show what it is, okay, how the logs are being captured. So this logs will be utilized. If there is any kind of a problem, you can just read the logs and understand. So you'll get a basic understanding of that. Okay, you can see the log killing process, opening the applications. Okay, now it is going to get transaction data. That is our next chapter which we will read. But now let's focus on the log. So what you do, Control L, and here you will have the execution log data. So highlight by date, then this is the one. Okay, if you open this, you can see it has got the date, 1422 is 222 is the time, and then it has got the date, okay, and it has got all the details. So this is the log, guys, I was talking. So add log, in case you want to add some extra logs, that is the activity that we are using to add the log. So this is the default log, this is working with the add log, and it has added the couple of extra details into this log file. So this is how you access the log file. See, kill all process, you can see that, right? So all of these are getting tracked, so you need to read one by one. Anyways, you have understood what is this log, and you want to read in detail, so you can see it, the message killing process has been logged. Okay, so you can spend some time to read the log files in detail, but again, you understood the entire workflow till now. So in the initial application, we are opening the config Excel file, we are reading all the data, storing all the data into a dictionary, right? And once we store everything to dictionary, then we are assigning the queue name from the orchestrator. Okay, so once we have assigned, then we are killing any unwanted processes. Let's say there are times you might have certain PDF, or you want to close all the unwanted application that is there in the, you want to close all of the application apart from certain things. So you can mention all of this, so that if in case if it is any of the applications are there, it will just close it out. Okay, and then you are add log fields, it is adding the required logs into your log file. And then next is invoke initial application workflow. In this workflow, it is again completely blank. You need to go ahead and add the respective things. Let's say I want to open Excel application, so that it doesn't take time to open and then process, right? You want to keep it open at the beginning, a blank Excel file. And you want to open a browser and keep it open. So all of this you can declare in this workflow. Okay, this is the entire workflow is clear now. So once we move on with upcoming chapters, you will understand how to utilize it. So now you have understood all the initial activity. So let me summarize the initial activity. It is doing only two couple of jobs. One is it is taking all the data from the config file. Two, it is assigned a queue name. Third, there is a provision for you to kill. This is optional. Kill applications, which is optional, you can utilize or you can leave it as it is. Okay, and then the fourth thing is open applications. So these are the four different things does happen inside the init function. Okay, so we have covered very much in detail, guys. So help me, please do like and comment as to how was this training. Did you like it? You didn't like it? What was good? What was bad? All of this you can comment and let me know, so that we can improve. Okay, I understand I am explaining too much in detail, but again, people who come in the initial background requires a lot of explanation. Otherwise, it will be a problem if I simply flow, expecting that they already know. Okay, that's why I'm spending time. But anyways, this is one of the video which will help you a lot in the upcoming chapters, and the upcoming chapters we can cover it as quick as possible. So in the last chapter we have seen how to utilize the init function. Anyways, I'm going to explain in bit in this video too, but the very important chapter is get transition data. So this is very critical, and for many of us it might appear slightly complex, because in this we are using orchestrator queue. Because of this, many might get confused and do not feel like continuing to understand this, but I would make it very easy for you to understand. Okay, so let's get started. And one more request, guys, do not skip this video, because if you skip most of the concept I am trying to explain, you will miss that. So there is no point in watching the video. So please do not skip the video. I would explain you everything in detail bit by bit. So let's get started. On your UiPath, click on Start, click on Robotic Enterprise Framework. Here you can give a name. So here let me give Expo Hub Demo, and you can give a description. Click on Create. So this is the RE framework. Now we will understand the get transition data, but again get transition data is associated with the init. Okay, so we will understand the init also in a bit. In chapter 2 I have explained in very much detail, but again this is also good enough for you to understand. And then once init data is ready, then we will get into get transaction data. So this time the very first step that you will take, so let me explain you. The very first step is you need to create a queue in orchestrator. So this is where many would have find slightly difficult, right? So let's see how to do that. You need to create a queue in orchestrator. So this is your step number 1. Okay, so let me explain you how to do that. To do that we will get into init. Okay, and in the init, as I have explained in the chapter 2, in the init, even though you do not understand anything or you have not seen that chapter 2, it's fine. All you need to do is just go down here. You will have an option invoke init applications, right? Just click on the open workflow. Okay, even though you haven't got any understanding of the previous chapter, it's fine, you can still continue to watch this video. So here in the init applications, what you have to do, you have to add queue. Okay, so if you want to log a message, you can have this. You want to delete that, that's fine, but it's recommended to keep it. Now what I'm going to do is I have to create a queue. For that I have to log into orchestrator. Type platform.uipath.com on your browser. Continue with your email ID. So once you are in the home page of orchestrator, click on services, and here you have already created a services. In case you do not know how to create a service, I have a video on orchestrator. There are 3 steps. So there is a very popular video, you can watch that from my channel. You can go to the video section and look for orchestrator and you will find that. So let's say I'm considering that you know about this. So once you have created the service, here it will be available. Just click on the service. Now once you are inside the service page, this is what you would see. Under automation you have something called queue. Click on queue. So once you are inside the queue, click on the plus sign, give a name. So I'm giving Expo Hub Demo Queue as a name, and here unique reference just leave as it is. Auto retry can be yes, max retry could be 1 2 3, whatever your numbers. For practice purpose this is good enough, do not change anything. Just give a name, give a description if you like to, then click on add. Alright, now this is the new queue, Expo Hub Demo Queue, but again you do not have any data, right? You need to upload some data. So what is this queue, guys? This is like, for example, if I ask you sum 2 numbers in Excel, if I ask you, so what you do in the UiPath, you can just read the Excel file and then do it. But what if there's a data which you have to upload on the server? Okay, if I ask you, you upload on the server so everybody can access that file, right? Upload on the server and then everybody can access the file. So that is the purpose of queue. So in the queue, what you generally do, you upload all your items. Let's say in an Excel file you have got multiple data. Let's say you have extracted a data from PDF, right? I have covered a video on that one, PDF automation, how to process the PDF invoices. So let's say you have extracted all the invoices and that is there in your Excel file. Okay, all the data is there in the Excel file, and you want to upload that to server, and then from there you want to process it. So this is where the orchestrator comes into play. Orchestrator is there in the cloud. It's a server where you are uploading your required data, right? And once your data is uploaded in the server, you're trying to download that and process it. Okay, so hope this concept is clear. Orchestrator do not there are so many other functionality, but the queue, the usage of the queue is that you simply upload the data, right? You are uploading the data to the server and then downloading that data and processing it. Okay, that simple it is, guys. Okay, so and I'm going to show you a practical example. of how to do that. How will you upload your Excel data into Orchestrator using queue, and then how will you download the data and process it is something I'm going to teach in this series. Okay, so now our main focus would be on get transition data. So get transition data means there is something already in the server or in the orchestrator, you want to pull that. So this is in the layman's language. In UiPath language, there is something, the data is available in the queue and you would like to download that and process it. Okay, that is the meaning. So get transition data means getting the data or downloading the data from the orchestrator. So this concept is clear, right? So now we will understand how will you first upload the data to the server. Okay, so to do that, and using RE framework, I don't want you to do any, so using RE framework, how will you upload the data to the server, and then how will you get the transition data or the items or the, simply it's in simple terms, the data is there on the server, you want to download. Let's say sum of two numbers, you have uploaded two numbers into the server, you want to download that and sum and show it. Okay, so something like that. So your understanding should be very clear here, because the concept nobody would teach you. So this is the concept, guys. So you are uploading a data to the queue, right? Using orchestrator queue. Once it is uploaded, get transition data is will help you to download that. So to upload, what we will do, to upload data, you have to use the init, the start first state, right? There are 4 states, this is the first state. So to upload data, I'll be using the init, and to download data, I'll be using get transition state. Okay, now it's very simple, guys. I don't know why it is appearing complex, because the way it is explained probably. So let me explain you and make it very clear. It's really easy than anything else. Okay, anything else it's really easy. So this is your second state. Okay, so let's see how to upload the data. So right now I was saying you are in the main workflow. Just click on init, and in that just scroll down and go to invoke init applications. So you are initializing something here, right? So click here, open workflow. Now here what I will do, let me show you the Excel file. Okay, what data I want to upload. So guys, this is the data that I have on my Excel. So this is the invoice that I've extracted using the previous workflow. You can see my PDF automation video. So here what I've done, bill to name, date of issue, due date, invoice number, all this data is there. Okay, so I want to upload two data. Let's say bill to name, whom it was, and what is the total amount due, so that I can make a workflow where I can show total amount. So I can sum all of these numbers and show you, right? I can sum all of these numbers and show you what is the total amount. So how to do that? So as I said, the first step is you need to upload the data, right? 1.1. So you need to upload the data, and then you need to download the data. So there are two things. So how to upload the data, that is something you have to do it in the init one state. Okay, in the init, the first state. For this, I'll be using the Excel application scope. I will copy the path of the file. In the double quotes, put the path of the file where you have the data. It could be, you can take some example. And one more thing, guys, while I am teaching, please open your UiPath. That is the best way to learn, and do it along with me. Okay. So now I have given the path. What I will do next is I'll use a read range activity to read the data, right? That's where I'll upload the data, right? Once I read the data. Okay. Copy the sheet name. I would request you to copy. Sometime while typing you might make mistake. So PDF extract is the sheet name. Here you need to paste that data. Done. And I want to read the entire range. Here I will create a data table. Control+K. So it is PDF data table. Okay, PDF DT is the data table. Alright, so once I have read the entire range of Excel, all the data is there in now PDF DT. Okay, so once you have declared the PDF data table, what you do, use a for each row. Alright, so that it will read the data row by row. Okay, it is going to read the data row by row, and then we are going to upload each data row by row. So all this data row by row, these are called transaction item. Remember the key term, it is called transaction item. So here in the for each loop, mention the data table name pdfdt. Now type orchestrator, and here in the orchestrator, these are all different activities. Okay, so now we will be using the queue. Just expand the queue and you have something called add queue item. Okay, now in the add queue item, what you will do, you will mention the queue name. Okay, here is the queue name. So as I told you how to create the queue, and the queue has got no data 000. So this is the name you have to copy, and here in the add queue item you have to paste and ensure you put a double quote. Okay, because it's a string. All right, so once that is done, so how the data will be fed, you have created the add queue item and you mentioned which queue the data should be uploaded. Okay, so you have done that. Now you have to enter the data, right? So for that, so what are the data you want to enter? From the Excel file, there are all the data. Okay, now for example, what I will do, I just want to upload this data and this data. I don't want all the data from the Excel, because I just want to know what is the total amount when I sum all of this and who are those people. So I will just take this two data. Okay, so how to do that? So the name is build to name, right? And the next is amount due. Create the argument in underscore. All your arguments should be in this format. Okay, as you create variable in a general way, for arguments, this is how you create. So I will say in, so I want to know the name, right? It's a name. So how it is, from where it is coming from? It is coming from row in bracket. You have to simply say the exact name of the column. So this is the exact name. I would recommend you to copy it. Okay, do not write. Sometimes the space and things you would make mistake, or the spelling mistake might happen. Copy this. Now go here. Here what you have to do, just type the column name dot toString. That's all. Simple. Now the next item I want is the amount, right? Total amount. So in underscore total due. Simply say due amount, right? Total due is a good name. Okay, total due. Now again the same way you have to declare row. Again copy the proper name from the Excel file, paste it here and say dot toString. Okay, so what would happen now? It will read that Excel, and by putting the for each row, it is going to read that column and it's going to pick the first data and put it in this variable or the argument. Same, it will put this amount and put it in this variable or argument. Okay, let me simply run this. So while you run, what you do, save it and come out of this and run it here. So now you can see in the orchestrator, we have uploaded the 5 data exactly from the Excel. Okay, so all this data. So let's have a look to the data, how they look like. Let me click on this drop down and then click on view transactions. And here you have the data. So what you do, just click on one of the item. We will just verify view details. So what you have seen here, now it is showing you the data, right? Specific data object. This is object type which contains the data. In underscore name Joydeep and in underscore total due so and so. Let's compare that. So in the Excel file also Joydeep Sahu and 48. So your first data goes in the down and the last data will be on the top. Okay, first in first out. So that is how it is designed. So Joydeep Sahu 48,000. Joydeep Sahu 48,780. Okay, so this is matching. Our data is matching and all the data have been uploaded. So we are successful in the test. Now, so what has happened now till now? The data has been uploaded to the queue. So I think it's very simple, right? You understood that. So do it once or twice, so you will understand how to upload the data. Okay, simply create a simple workflow, add queue item you utilize, and see how to upload the data to the queue. Okay, so once you are done with this, next is to download. So this is where our main chapter would come, where we will learn about get transaction data. Okay, so this is our main chapter on how to download the data. So let's see that. So before you get started into get transaction data, go to the folder where you have the config file. So this is my project. Get into the project folder under UiPath. Okay, generally it will be under documents, and then here you have something called data. Click on data and you have something called config file. Open this file, and here the orchestrator queue name that you have just created, simply delete this, and here you type expo hub demo queue. Ensure your spelling is correct, okay, otherwise the queue will not be able to access it. So anyways, you have seen that. So let me save it and close this file. Do not keep the file open. Save whatever data you want, change it and save it. So let's move on to get transaction data. Click on this one, and here you have a workflow which I'm going to explain in much detail. So there is something called check stop signal. Okay, so this is not actually check stop, this is should stop. So they have changed the display name. Just type should stop, you will get this activity. Okay, so what is this activity? This activity, when you are in orchestrator and you would like to stop a job, a running job, you would like to stop in between. You found there is some problem going on and you want to stop it immediately. So when somebody does that, the check stop signal get activated, and there is an output variable. Let me show you. So here, do you see the result is should stop? This is a variable they have created, should stop. So you can see there is a boolean variable. You can see that, right? Should stop is a boolean variable. So this variable by default will have false. Okay, if somebody is clicking in the orchestrator stop job, when they click on that button, this value will become yes. So when the value will become yes, then it will say stop process. This is going to log the message, and then it will say transaction item nothing. That's all. Okay, so this part is very clear, right? So when somebody is stopping from orchestrator, it will just log a message, the stop process requested. Okay, and then the transaction item will become nothing. That means it is not going to process any of your data from here. So from here, what would happen? It will go to end state. No data, end process. So it will go to end process. Okay, so now the very important part is the right side. So in the right side, what they have done, they have used a workflow. So we have to understand the workflow in very detail. Okay, so the very first thing before you, when you see invoke, first thing you should study is the arguments. So without having proper knowledge of arguments, if you get into the workflow, you will get confused. So click on the arguments. Okay, so now the very key thing is in. Wherever you find in means some data is coming from some variable or something like that. Okay, so what is this in? You need to understand. Now as I said, in your first state, what is the state? Init. In the init state, the file is called config file, right, where all the data was written and all the data has been stored in a data table called config. Okay, that was the output. We saw it in the last chapter. Okay, in case you are not very clear, please watch my previous video, chapter 2. Okay, so here all the, otherwise in simple terms, all the data from the Excel file will come to the config dictionary. This config dictionary, I'm sorry, it's not data table, it's dictionary. So this config dictionary, it is going to pass the value to the new argument called in config. That's all. Okay, that is the meaning. So what we have done just now, in the config file we have stored the queue name. You remember, I opened the config file and there I have typed expo hub demo queue and I saved it. So what will happen, that data will be now be available in this variable or argument which I need to use in this workflow. Okay, so this is the main part. Other part is like whatever output is coming, I am storing in some variables or arguments. Okay, and this is the transaction number. The transaction number, if you go to variables, the transaction number, it is given as they have given a, what is that transaction number? So they have given a count. It's a counter, 1 2 3 4 5, how many transactions happening, it will count. Okay, it will keep on increasing. Okay, So we understood about all the arguments or variables what will be used inside this workflow. Click on open workflow. Now in the open workflow, there is something called get transaction item. So very simple, get transaction item, where it has to get it from the Expo Hub demo queue, from the orchestrator, right? From there it has to download all the data. So the very first thing you have to look is where is the queue name. So here is the queue name. Here what they have done, they have already written it for you. In config is your nothing but your dictionary, which has the value of your init, and orchestrator queue name is the key, and that has the value. So let me show you. So what they are trying to access is from the config file, right? You have written export demo queue, so it is trying to take this value and put it there. So instead of this, you can also directly put a double quote and write your queue. That is also very simple. Okay, if you are getting confused, simply write the queue name, even that will work. Okay, so whichever way. So this is simply the queue name, and then your output, whatever the output is. So get transaction item is nothing but downloading the data. So this is our second part. So download the data is used through the activity called get transaction item. So this is the activity responsible to download the data to your project, and then you process how you want. Okay, so this is get transaction item activity to download the data. Okay, and to upload the data, what you have used to upload the data, what activity you have to use? Add transaction item. Okay, we have seen that in the previous workflow. Okay, so these are the two activities, very critical. Now get transaction item, what it does, let me show you. Okay, I'll show you how it is working. So get transaction item, here I have written the queue name, and the output is going to get stored in the this variable. Okay, out transaction item. So this is the argument where it will be stored. Argument and variable are just same, apart from your arguments can be carried forward to outside or inside the workflow. So again, I would call it as a variable or argument. So this will store the data. So let's see what data it is processing. Okay, so what to do, let's disable all the below activities. So let me control D, and I have disabled all the activities. Okay, now I want to see what data is coming. For that, you know, the best way is to use a message box for our satisfaction to understand what data is coming. Now here what I will do, I'll use that variable. What is the variable? Out underscore transaction. Simply type out underscore transaction item. Okay, so this is the variable. Cross verify. Out transaction item, correct. So out transaction item. So here what you do, put a dot, and I want to see what data. So what you do, specific content, dot specific content, and in the bracket you mention there are two contents, right? So there are two contents. One is name and the amount. So let's see that in the orchestrator. So in the orchestrator, this is the data. Let me open it. So here you can see in name is Joydev, in total dues this one. So these are the exact variables you have to use. Okay, so do not take this semicolon, remove the semicolon, go here, and here in the bracket you have to paste that and remove the semicolon. Okay, that means it is going to take that data. Clear? So now what I will do, I'll simply run it. Okay, and we want to see what data. So this data, so let's see two data. So let's first see this, and then we will customize. And do not run it from get transaction data. Always go to main, say whatever you have done, and run it. So you can see how nicely it's pulling the names. So first data is done. Now it's pulling the second name. Now it's pulling the third name. Now it's pulling the fourth name, fifth name. So all the data has been processed. Okay, so you understood how this one works. Okay, we saw how to download the data and show it. So this data actually will be using the process state, okay, not here processing state, the next state where you will be using. But I want to show you this because understanding this is very critical. Until you understand simply just by remembering you are using, then there is no point. That is why I wanted to explain it here. But the data processing you will not do it here. The data processing you will do it in the next state, okay, not here. But again, this has given you ample. So if you want to access one more data, let me show you. Let's say I want to say the name and then total amount. So I want to show this two data, okay. So I want to show the name and total amount. So to do that, what you will do, how to, so all this you will be doing again in the process state, okay. This is not the place as per the framework, this is not the place. So to do that, toString, give a plus sign, double quote, give a hyphen, give little space between this hyphen, come out, give a plus sign. Here write the variable again, out transaction item, select this, dot specific content, and then in the bracket again you write the exact variable, and to do that copy it from the orchestrator. So copy this, paste it and write dot toString. Okay, so the error is gone, everything is perfect. Just click OK, you will see how it is appearing now. So as I said, save it, come out of this get transaction data, go to the main, run it. So the first value has appeared, Rahul Jignesh 89. So let's compare with our Excel file. So Rahul Jignesh 89,000. Okay. So the data is uploaded in the orchestrator, and from the server the data is coming. No more from your Excel file. Okay. Now let's wait for the next data. Nagesh Reddy 26,170. Nagesh Reddy 26,170. So you can see how perfectly all the data it is going to fetch. So there are 5 data, all the 5 data will come. So the transaction is over now. So you have seen how nicely it's taking the data. So this is not the place to show you, as I said. Don't worry about that error. Just delete this. Okay. So you have understood how the transaction item, get transaction item is nicely downloading the data, and how will you access those values also. You have got a very beautiful example. So you know now, right now you are master and you can upload any kind of data and you can do any kind of exercise you want. Okay, now below that, so let me remove it out, and below that what they have done, there is no much thing. What they are doing, they are using assign activity, that they are creating a variable out underscore transaction ID or argument, and now dot toString is nothing but what, this is a date and time it will note, and then toString, so that becomes a ID. Okay, so that is creating ID. So when you do a bank transaction, it will have a ID, right, some number. So whatever way you want to create, if you want to just go with the date, you want to put some extra numbers before the date, so all of this you can do it. So that is a simple activity. Okay, so I don't want to spend time on that one. And then again, all these assign activities they have used. So anything you want to create, like transaction field 1, field 2, if you really require to use it, just have it, or else simply delete this. Okay, because if your project doesn't need all of this field 1, field 2, you can happily go ahead and delete them. If you need an ID, you can create a different sort of ID. So you can manipulate the strings. You know how to manipulate the strings. So you can manipulate the strings and create a new ID number. Okay, so this is how simple it is, guys. So you have understood how the data is up. So let's summarize. So what we have done in the get transaction data and transaction data. If you find spelling mistake, guys, please ignore. While teaching and typing, there might be some mistakes. Please forgive me. But that get transaction data, right? So here what we have done, we have added a workflow to upload the data, right? That we have done inside the init state. And then next we learned how to download the data, which we have done in the get transaction state. Okay, so these are the two state we have used, and to upload the data we have used add queue item. Here in the you can see that add queue item, and to download the data we have used get transaction item. That simple, guys. So now I am sure after going through this chapter 3, I think you are done. After that you have the process which is completely blank. You can see that. Let me go back, and so after this you have got something called process transaction. So we can learn that in little detail in my next chapter, which will be your chapter 4. But again, until here, if you have understood the concept, the init concept and the get transaction data concept, I think you are done. I think you are done. You can master this RE framework pretty well. Okay, but again I will upload another video which will talk about processing the data, and then we will come up with more practical examples. Okay, the practical examples will start with very basic ones, and then we'll get into more complex ones, so you understand how to utilize the RE framework. So if you go through this entire exercise, I am sure you will not have any doubt, in a interview or something like that. Okay, you will not have any kind of a doubt, and you will be able to succeed. We are going to discuss about the process transaction. So let me show you what we are going to achieve. Let me show you the goal of this RE framework. So this is the Excel file. From this Excel file, I would like to calculate shared hosting fee and late fee. So I want to upload all these data to orchestrate a queue, and then I wanted to sum this two up. Okay, so for example, if I calculate this two, the total amount is somewhere like 89,600. Okay, so this is what I wanted to do it through RE framework. Okay, this is your input file. From this input file, it should read the entire file, upload the data to orchestrator queue item, and from the queue item I would like to sum these two values and show the total amount due. So let's see how to do it. So this is the goal. Keeping this goal in mind, we have to go through init, get transaction data, then process transaction data. So click on init, and inside init scroll down, and you will find something called invoke init all applications workflow. Okay, we are initializing all the applications. So I have to read my Excel file. So I'll be designing that workflow over here. Click on open workflow. Now here I have designed the workflow to save time. So I have taken an Excel application scope and given the path, and then I'm using a read range, the path of the file, then read range activity, and here it will read that entire Excel file. So the entire Excel file will be read, and then it is going to store in a data table called PDF DT. Clear? So this is my data table. Now I am using a for each row activity using the PDF DT data table, which will go through each row item one by one. So when it reads for the first time, it will read this entire row, then it will read the second, third, fourth, like this. All the data will be read from this Excel file. So once it reads, I want to upload this data to the queue. Okay, so let's see the queue. Type platform.uipath.com and click on services. Open your service. So all of this I have taught in my orchestrator video. You can see that, or else you can follow the previous chapters that I have covered on RE framework. Once you are in the home page, click on queue, and here you have to click on the plus sign and simply give a name. So let me give Expo Hub demo queue. Okay, so this is my queue name, and click on add. So all this you don't have to worry about, just leave as is, click on add. Okay, so once your queue is created, go back to UiPath. Now let's focus on the add queue item. Here you have the queue name, right? So your queue name should exactly match with your queue created in the UiPath platform.uipath.com. Okay, in the orchestrator we have created the queue, it should match. And then the very critical thing is your collection. the data that you want to upload. I don't want the entire Excel to get uploaded, right? So I will choose which data. So here is the item information collection. Click on this. Here I am choosing to only upload 3 data: name, shared hosting fee, late fee. So these are the 3 data: name, shared hosting fee and late fee. I want to only upload these 3 data because this is the 3 data I want to process in this project. Okay, so what I am doing, I have created an argument called in name, and then here the value what I am doing, row. So I am running a for each loop, right? So row in bracket build to name. This build to name is coming from your Excel file. Okay, exact name you have to copy this and then paste it over here. Build to name dot to string. Same thing you have to do for all the other 2 data. Okay, for all the other 2 data I am doing row shared hosting fee, row late fee. So all of the data will get uploaded into the orchestrator. Okay, so this I have made it very clear in the previous chapter. In case you want to see that, you can go ahead and look the RE framework previous chapters. Okay, so in this area I have uploaded the data. So let me go back to main. Okay, now comes to the get transaction data. So in the get transaction data is nothing but downloading that data from the queue. Okay, so this is your queue. So once we run it, the data will get uploaded over here and we can see all the data. I will show you that. And in the get transaction data, I am going to download the required data and process them in the project's process transaction state. So let's see, I'm going to explain it. Now in the get transaction data, double click, and here on the right hand side, you have the invoke get transaction data where you have to concentrate. In detail, again, there is a chapter on this one. I have it is there on my video section, you can check that. So here what you do, click on open workflow. Okay, here the get transaction item, you should, this is very critical now, get transaction item downloading all the data into out transaction item. So this is the argument where all my data from the queue will get downloaded. All the data, whatever I have uploaded, all the data will get downloaded here into out transaction. But I want to process only specific data. I am going to show you. So here all the data has been downloaded. Now let's go back to main. Now in the main, we are coming into the next state called process transaction. This is what our topic today. So process transaction, what I have to do, you have to, as I always said, before you get into any kind of workflow, reading the arguments is very, very critical. Because if we don't have understanding of the arguments, then you will not be able to understand that workflow. So click on imports argument, and here you will find the transaction, our data was in the out underscore transaction item, right? But if you see it here, there is no out dot transaction. So how the data would come from that state to this state? Let's see that. To see that, go back to get transaction data, and here you have this import argument. Click on this import arguments, and here you will see out dot transaction data, right? Transaction item. So this is the data, this is the data which will have all the downloaded data from the get transaction item activity. So all the data will be here. So what it is doing, the data will be passed from this direction. Okay, from this it will come to transaction item. So this is a new argument or new variable which is will be used in the processing transaction state. Okay, in the next state it will be used. So remember, this is very critical to understand. So get transaction data will download all the value into this variable or argument, and then this data is a out direction. So this value will be passed to the new variable called transaction item. Okay, so there is a new variable called transaction item we need to remember. So the value of get transaction item passed to a new argument called transaction item. Okay, so this you should remember. This exactly happens in the state 2. Okay, so after that we will get into the process state. Okay, now process state is state 3. Now I'm entering the process transaction. So here if you see what they are doing, the transaction item, the new data, again passing its value from this direction, and it's coming to the new variable called in underscore transaction item. Okay, so this you should remember, in underscore transaction item is the new variable which has the data. So let me get into the workflow. So the process transaction workflow is completely blank. So first thing I want to understand, let me see the values. Okay, so message box I will use, and I would like to see the value one by one. So to do that, what I will do for the moment, because it has not upload any data, so I have to run it. But I know all my values will be there in underscore transaction item. So if I want to see something, some specific data, so I have to say specific content. Okay, and the variable. So how do you know the variable, which where exactly? So what you do, you simply go back to main. So where you are uploading data, add queue item, right? Go there, go to init, and scroll down, and you have this init where you are using the add queue item, right? So go here, the add queue item, right? So this is very important to know, make a note of these names. So your first name is in underscore name, okay? Second one is in underscore shared hosting fee. Third one is in late fee. So exactly the same value you have to type, okay? In underscore name. So let me first show you the in underscore name, then we will process all of this data. Okay, so now I am in the process transaction state, and I am inside that workflow. So here what I'm doing, in underscore transaction item dot specific content, and here I'm writing the data in underscore. I'll show you this, what in case you are not understanding here, I am going to show the demo dot toString. Okay, so let me do one thing, let me run this now, then we will understand in very nicely. So before you run it, save everything, all the changes that you have done, go to the main and then run it. So our first data has come, Rahul Jignesh. So I'm just pulling this name, okay? Then our next data should be Nagesh Reddy. Third data should be, so same way I can pull all of these items one by one. Rohan Verma and then Joydeep Sahu. This is the last name, okay? So now the process is complete. Now let us understand in detail. So what is happening, let me go to the main, let me show you. So here we have uploaded the data, right? So here we went to init, then we went to the workflow called invoke init all application. We opened this workflow, and inside this workflow we read the Excel file, we created a data table, and then we run a for each loop, and then we have using the add queue item and uploading the data using the item information collection with 3 of these arguments. So these 3 arguments, let me go to orchestrator and see the data. So in the orchestrator, this is the export demo queue. Click on this one and click on view transactions. So here these are the data, right? So when you open this view details, so you will see the add queue item with this following variables, it has uploaded the data, okay? In late fee, so whatever you have declared, in the same way it has uploaded the data in the first in first out format. It has uploaded each of this data. So let's say, because I have to sum these 2 numbers, right? This one and this one. So how to do that? Let's see it. So to add those 2 values, go to process transactions, and here in the process transaction, click on this workflow. So just now we saw how to see the data. So this time I saw the in name. So what I want, my job is to add 2 values. So what I will do, I'll use a assign activity. and here let me create a variable control K. So there are two values. One is shared hosting fee, right? Let me show you the Excel file. So shared hosting fee is one value, this one late fee is another value, and the same thing is there in my orchestrator, right? In the queue it is there, in shared hosting fee, in late fee. So these two values I have to add. So to do that, I'll go to the assign activity and declare a variable, and here I want to get that specific item, right? So I know all my data is now in underscore transaction item dot specific content. So let me show you in a bigger screen. Okay, so the variable which contains all the data from the orchestrator queue is this variable dot specific content, and which content you want. So first content that I want is, so you should be very careful writing this, okay, because a small and is case sensitive. If it is a small mistake, then it won't fetch the value. So go back to your orchestrator, and I need this variable, right? So copy this and paste it over here. Okay, that is the exact name. Then so this data, because they all have been uploaded as a string, right? So I want to convert that to integer. To do that, go to home, and here you write c int, convert integer. Okay, c int means convert integer, and then put a bracket. Okay, so that way it's going to convert that string value to integer value. Okay, so now the sh fee, this variable also should be a integer type. So all you do is go here, convert this to an integer type. Okay, so the error is gone. Same way you have to do it for the other value. So the other value is what? Late fee, right? So control plus K, I'm giving another variable called L fee. Okay, and here what you do, instead of shared hosting fee, delete this, go back to orchestrator and exactly double click on that, get that and paste it over here. Understood? This way it is going to pull that data, and then it is going to convert that to integer value, and it's going to store it here. Again, go to the variable, and your L fee is supposed to be integer type. Okay, so I've converted both of these values. Now I have to add it. So to add it again, copy paste the upper one and create a new variable here. So the new variable control plus K, let's say total due, right? Total due amount. So total due, I have created a variable, and here what I will do, delete the previous one, and here I have to add this to variables. That's simple. sh fee, this is a integer type, sorry, sh fee is an integer variable plus L fee. This is also integer variable. So that way both the data will be added and the sum value will be kept over here. Again, go to variable, total due supposed to remain integer 32. Okay, so this you have understood. All right, so let's see if it is working or not. For that, let's use a message box. Okay, and here I would say total due dot toString. Clear? Now let's save it and always go to the main. Okay, do not run it from here. Then let's run it. Okay, so the first value has come 89,600. Let me go back to the Excel, just see if the value is correct or not. These two values it is adding, so my value is 89,600, which is perfect. The second value 26,178. So this two sum, if I do a sum of this two, 26,178. So you can see it is properly adding both the values and showing me the result. Okay, so you can see that. So all the values have come properly. Now what I want to do, let me go to process transaction. So instead of showing it a message box, what if I add to a data table, so that the data table I can add it to a Excel file or something like that, right? So to do that, what I will do, I'll go to this workflow once again in the process state, process transaction state. So here, instead of a message box, what I will do, I wanted to add that to a data table. So adding it to a data table is very handy, right? You can do anything with that. So what I will do, I'll go to build data table activities, simply type data table. Okay, now here in the data table there is something called build data table. So drag and drop this activity, click on data table, and here, remove the default ones, click on the plus sign, and here I want to create a data table, total due amount. Okay, this is the column name, and this is supposed to contain integer type data. Click OK. Done. So my data table is created. Now give a name to your data table. So control plus K, and here I will give total amount due dt. Okay, so this is my this has become a long data table. That's fine. Total amount due dt. So this is my data table I have created. Okay, now I wanted to, because every time this runs for each transaction, right? So it will process the first transaction, show the value, then again it will pick the next value, show the transaction, right? So it is rotating, one by one. If you go to the main workflow, you have seen when it is success, then it's going back again, right? Going back again to the get transaction data. Again, it's pulling the next data. So that way the loop is running, right? This you need to understand, the loop is running. So what I want, every time the loop runs, right, everything, so it has to add the data to the data table. So for that, what I will do, I'll use the next activity called add data row. Okay, so this is the next activity. Now in the add data row, what I'm going to do, I will mention the data table name. What is the data table name I have created? Total amount due. So again, go here, write total amount due data table. Okay, so here it should, in this data table, it should add the values that are coming here. So which value? The total due amount should add it here. So to do that, go to array row, then give curly braces. Here you say total, and should be exactly correct. Okay, total due. Okay, so the spelling should be exactly the same way, total due. So this is the value, this is the variable which will have the total value, and it should add it to the data table. That's all. Okay, so done. So I've added to the data table. Let's say I want to see what is the value. For that, you have to scroll down, and there is something called output data table. So this will convert the value to text, and you can see it. So output data table, what I will do, the input data table for this one is this one, right? What we have built, total amount due. Go here, and in the data table, say total amount due, where you have to read the data from. And once you read the data, you store the data into a text variable, control plus K. Let me give a variable called output. Okay, so output variable will have the data now. So if I want to see that text variable, again use a message box. Now in the message box, simply say output variable. So that way, so let me explain. First, we have added both the values, SH fee, late fee, and that value comes to total due. Then we simply built a data table, total amount dt, and in that data table, using add data row activity, we are adding the value. Which value? Total due. This variable value we are adding, and once we add, we want to see that. To see that, I am using the output data table activity. Okay, here I have mentioned the data table, input data table as the previous data table what we have created, total amount dt, and then the output into a text variable called output. That's all, guys. So here the message box will come in the output. So let's run it. So before you do it, as I said, save it, go to the main. Okay, then run it from the main. So this time again, what will happen? Let me show you in the orchestrator what is happening. Okay, so in the orchestrator, you can see all the data has been processed, which the state has changed to successful. So we have run already 2 times. So all the data is successful now. So let me go back to the queue. Okay, so there is no data. So let me run it again. Now again it is 10. Once we run it again all the 5 data from the Excel file will be run, and that will become 15. So let's run it. Okay, so the first value has come 89,600, which is correct. We have seen it last time. Okay, 89,600. So that is correct. Second one, 26,178, which is again correct. The same way it is going to add all the values one by one. So this time we are not extracting the data using a message box, but rather we are using a data table and then trying to get the value. So the data table we can utilize anywhere in our project later state. Okay, so you understood this particular state, process state, how it can be executed, and depending on your project you can go ahead and modify and add other workflows that you need depending on the project. But you understood the use of process transaction and the key variables which are required. So understanding the key variables is very critical. Variables or arguments. Okay, so this time we have seen how the value is coming. Now after this, after all the transaction is done, then it is going to move to get transaction. There is no data, then it is going to end process. So in end process, let me show you end process, because I don't want to cover another chapter on this one, because this is simple. This has only one workflow: invoke close all applications. So if you click on open workflow, right, so it has got nothing apart from logging a message. So in case you want to close any application, so you have this, just type close workbook, close applications, close tab, close window. So all of this you can utilize over here. So depending on your project, so this time we don't require in this demo, but again depending on your project, whatever is required, you have to use all this kind of activities. You want to close or kill, whatever activity. So not necessarily only close, and also use a kill process or whatever you want to do. Depending on that, you can utilize all of this activity in the end state. Okay, so with that, guys, we have covered the entire chapter of RE framework, and going forward we'll come up with small to complex or simple to complex examples of using RE framework. I'll come up with more examples. In case you have something in your mind, you can let me know. Okay, and let me know as to any project that you want to put it in a RE framework and then wanted to see that how it runs. So we can probably create a demo out of one of the discussion that you guys wanted to comment. Okay, so next we are going to come up with examples of using RE framework. So this itself is a good example, you have understood, but again we'll come up with more examples, practical examples to see it. So guys, please do like and comment your questions. Okay, so I want to see more likes and comments coming, so that one thing is, it motivates us. We know people are reading and people are understanding and giving benefit to other people. That way it motivates a lot. Please do not forget to hit on the like and comment your questions or anything you felt. Please do comment. Thank you very much guys for watching this. You guys have a wonderful day.